I am addicted to social media. And to be honest, this is probably the single greatest thing holding me back from becoming the person I wish to be. I've always said that most of us don't need to be more productive. We just need to be less distracted. In this video, I'm going to be talking about my objective reality with social media, the vicious consumer cycle, and the solution that can help us regain back hours every single week. So stick to the end of the video because I'm confident that this video can help you. Kind of seems hypocritical that in a video about unplugging, I'm telling you to watch to the end. So I guess if my viewer retention rate is low on this one, then that's a good thing, right? Right? Now, before I go off on a tangent about social media, I want to highlight a few positives from these platforms. First of all, I think it's incredible that I can connect with literally anyone in the world who I've met at some point. With a click of a few buttons, I can have them on FaceTime, I can see their posts on Instagram, and it can also help you keep up to date on your favorite sports teams, bands, memes, celebrities, all of that stuff. So those are the positives, and I really love social media for that reason. But there are some problems, and that is why I created this video today. Truthfully, this video stems from a really tough day I had yesterday where I got into just a vicious cycle, and I'll get into more on what that means in just a second. Just literally scrolling, and I couldn't stop myself. At first, I was beating myself up about this social media use, and then I realized if I know I want to flip this behavior, there are probably countless other people who are experiencing exactly this right now. Maybe you stumbled across this video because you're currently caught in social media, or maybe you just needed to hear this message this week. So if you're here, you're not alone in your social media use, and a common mindset I talk about is the ability to use every single circumstance to your advantage. So that's what I'm aspiring to do with my lapse I had yesterday. I want to make this video to help you, so let's dive into it. Now I got to give credit to this guy and many other creators of social media apps because they're capitalizing on our attention spans, and it is an absolute goldmine. There are literally thousands of people who work at these social media companies whose sole job is to find ways to keep the viewers on there for more and more time. And the reason for this is that there's ads on there, and these social media companies generate an insane amount of revenue from people viewing these ads. So that's the business model they have. And I realized that I'm not an outlier for being addicted. I'm actually just fitting right into their business model. American statistician Edward Tufte said it best when he said something along the lines of this: there are only two industries that call their customers users: illegal drugs and software. With the pandemic hitting the world, TikTok's reach expanded exponentially. TikTok's concept is for viewers to watch many short form videos, and it just feeds you videos based on what you've watched in the past. So there's just an endless stream of videos that align with what you want to watch, and many things that are kind of just testing the water so they can keep feeding you more and more things. And many times we get caught in these apps and we just can't stop. And you're seeing other social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook going to Reels, or YouTube introducing Shorts. You have Snapchat that has all the different stories and different stuff like that. Those are all different features designed to keep you on because, again, they generate ad revenue by the amount of time we spend scrolling on their apps. But with this new short form content, say that 10 times fast, short form content, short form content, short form content, we're seeing the business model shift away from connecting with people you know in faraway places, and instead you're seeing it more as people trying to go viral, trying to gain exposure, and it's become more of a business tool rather than a tool to connect with loved ones and connect with friends around the world. As Catherine Price explains in How to Break Up with Your Phone, which is a great book if you do want to disconnect from your devices more, is that every single video we see on our feeds gives us a dopamine hit. And dopamine is something that our body craves. It's an addictive thing. It's like if you're sitting at a blackjack table, you crave dopamine when the dealer starts to flip it over. And the more you're on these devices, the more your brain starts to want this dopamine. And so you need more and more and more content in order to fulfill your brain's desire. So that's how you get caught in these vicious cycles, and you just can't stop because your brain is just craving more and more and more. And when you have thousands of engineers on the other side of the screen finding ways to keep you in, it's no wonder that we are fed by likes and comments and all the different stuff that comes with social media instead of the connection piece, which is why many of us were initially drawn to the platforms. So now instinctively when we have moments where we're standing in line, we just reach for our phone instantly. We can't be bored because boredom doesn't have dopamine hits, And we know we can instantly gratify that itch, we can instantly scratch that itch the more we go on these platforms. But as I explained in my summary of Think and Grow Rich, you can watch that video here. We need to be bored because boredom feeds our imagination, and imagination is the starting point for literally everything you see in the world. It's the starting point for these social media apps. It's the starting point for anything material that humankind has created. Manoush Zomorodi, I probably completely butchered that name, has an incredible TED Talk from 2017 about the importance of being bored and the importance of unplugging. So I'll attach it in the description down below, but it's a great watch. I would highly encourage all of you to do that. Is it just me, or does the name Manoush Zomorodi sound like some menu item in a top tier restaurant where you give you like a little bowl of soup that costs like $180? I'll get the Manoush Zomorodi. Now, truthfully, as someone who's on this side of the screen instead of on that side of the screen, why wouldn't I try to capitalize on the benefits that social media has? And I did a video, you can find that here, all about why I think we should all be posting regularly. But this video is the flip side to that, and how we need to watch our consumption, because it is the single greatest detractor of our time, and time is the most valuable asset any of us have. Raise your hand if at some point you've got caught in a mindless scroll on social media. Now keep that hand up if this happens more frequently than you'd like it to. Now raise your other hand if you believe that Nickelback is the single greatest band of all time. Now when you get caught in the social media trance, you start to feel unmotivated, and when you feel unmotivated, it's easier to be susceptible to just sitting there and scrolling, and the more you do that, the harder it is to snap out of it, and then at the end you just feel terrible because you've wasted all this time. That, my friends, is the vicious cycle. Recently, my girlfriend had the pleasure of seeing the Mayo Clinic do a speech at Denver, Colorado, and they had this really brilliant analogy for how the brain operates. They explained that our brain is like a home that has two different thinking patterns. Thinking pattern number one is the penthouse. That's when you're present, you're here. You right now, you're watching with me, you're here with me, we're hanging out. Then there's the basement, and that's where we spend about 80% of our time. That's when you're zoned out. That's when you're being non-intentional. So the difference between the penthouse and the basement is just intentional thinking versus non-intentional thinking. Social media, for the most part, is a basement activity. You go on there, you're craving those dopamine hits, and so for hours you just start scrolling and scrolling, and before you know it, you feel like a sack of potatoes. Now, what Ellie helped me learn is that the basement isn't always a bad place. And we like to use the analogy that sometimes you can go down into your basement, grab an iced tea, and then bring that back up to your penthouse, but you don't just want to be stuck in your basement without really any good reason of being there. Manoush Zomorodi, good soup, explains this as our default mode, which is great between making connections in our subconscious and conscious mind, but it only happens if we're not multitasking. Zomorodi explains how multitasking, which is actually something that's not possible, it's just quickly going from one activity to the next, is something that tires our brains out. And in her research, and the TED Talk was done in 2017, she said years before that we could withhold attention on one task for up to 3 minutes. But now with social media and emails and dings and everything that keeps coming into us from our phone, we have an attention span of 45 seconds. That's how often we're switching tasks. Are you still here? And the more often we do this, the less productive we are, which means we're less likely to get into a flow state, which means, in general, we're wasting a lot of time and not being as efficient as we could be. So something that I've been using that can really help try to bridge the gap between this 45 seconds to 3 second gap in our attention span is using the Pomodoro method.
Nice.
Basically, just work for 25 minutes, then you take a 5-minute break. 25 minutes, 5-minute break. You do this 4 times, and then after the 4th 25-minute increment, you take a longer break. But the only rule I have during Pomodoros is I can't check my phone, because that's just another thing that's detracting me from the task at hand and preventing me from getting into a flow state. Still watching? Good for you, you little munchkin. Thank you for being here. Okay, that was weird. Essentially, the thesis of Catherine Price's book about how to break up with your phone is just about being intentional with your use. It's about being in your penthouse when you're on your phone. So it's just about asking yourself, why am I checking Instagram right now? Why am I checking email? And if there's something you need to tend to, that's fine. But the goal is to just be on there purposefully rather than being in our basement when we're on there. Now, I don't know about you. It happens all the time when you like walk upstairs and you have no idea why you walked up there. I have that all the time on my phone. I like open it and I had like a text I wanted to send to someone, but then you just have a notification or you see something and then you just completely forget why you're even on there. Well, being purposeful, of course, is a great solution and is something that I still try to do. It just doesn't completely work for me.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
It hasn't cured my social media addiction, and I realize that that's not ever something I'm going to be able to get over, but it's something that I can optimize with my systems. And I talk about that in another video about how it's not you and your willpower. It all comes down to your systems. So my solution, beyond being purposeful and intentional on your phone, is to cut off the source right at the root. I offload all the apps that I'm going to get sucked into, like Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. Excuse me. And it's amazing how when I offload them, I don't miss those apps at all. But as soon as I have them on my phone, I can't help myself. I'll click into other apps, and it's so funny. Out of habit, I just always click into apps that are addicting. And when you offload apps, I find myself, I'm in these apps that I would never usually go into, and it just makes me completely avoid my phone because I have no reason to be on there. The only time I can download the apps is if I've written for the day, and it's a way to try to trick me into it. But by the time I've written for the day, I don't even really want to go on the apps. But it's when I forget to offload them again that it becomes problematic and I fall right back into my addictive behaviors. So my challenge to you this week is to just try offloading an app or series of apps that sucks you in. A lot of people might be reluctant to do this because they'll feel like they might miss out on something, but just try it. Just try it and see how much time you regain. And when you realize how much more time you have in a day, it'll be something you'll want to do way more consistently. So I'm not saying you need to abstain from these apps completely. I'm just saying I would encourage you to develop a healthier relationship with all the apps on your phone. Now, I was recently doing a project at MRU, and I learned that if you take out 1 hour a day of screen time, you regain 2 weeks a year. Like, what would you do with those 2 weeks? That's a trip to Mexico. Or that's 2 weeks that you can be using to invest in your future and invest in the person you wish to become, which is something I'm a huge advocate for on this page. But I just really encourage you to just commit to offloading some apps, become more intentional with them, and just watch as you regain a crazy amount of time every single day and every single week and every single year. And that time is so valuable. Thank you for watching today. I hope you were in your penthouse with me. I was certainly in my penthouse with you. Catch you on the flip flop later.